Adesima me mamu nyina dwo mama kwaba aba United Television so yakase ba yasaka fi omemu na fama hudu bi so no semufa so no so de aman adɔhwere bakwa da animu ye de ebesom na ye ka mo se ye kaseboy nyumako bi na afa ho ka nyina this way chocolate drink and coffee drink ye de busua no mienu ababeka ho this way 1 2 3 and afa this way yellow sisi de papa tino what ati no sisi be ka bia ka ho pa special sinsuo so amase nyina jatum say papa no bi na beboa sa na special drink so flavors ne makomako son obi ansa beka ono so ene ne de net fufuo so de semanum na fufuo aye krado and afa best point savings and loss and the best assurance we nyina kan bi na kaseboy ye de bram na ye ka mo say atifi nsem bi ene say mampani na nadodan kwakufu ado akokasa oguyana e da to gyechirim so ho behia se fan wo homodembo no wo mo bona oman no so tumi kɔ nanim Mame Esla Osu Ekufo Agya to dress a bam etel tigo aban agena eyade a omde mra ebeye adwuma na Ghana Civil Aviation Authority bejekuo no so ene yada omadi atifido mantam so afo abomodin akwa apo akohwe affordable housing project ehonsem ewotamale Kumasi kwantempo so amene boy nsaka kire se wo mo ye bypass bi ewu nkrotro makomako beye enan bi ho Asante mantem da ban new site adehia sema work and say bridge bi ensam so bi o no ehu ema wabrabo mpanyifo emrem ensem bi ka ho na ye de brem se kasebo na ye ka mo so se ukọ DSTV a channel 360 sanso na Facebook and social media hadis awudo nyina na ye kasebo yi etwagu akenkanfo ayesum na nwumre yi eyeme Agya Kwabena mene Obahima Afia Asiedu Afia kasebo ne musam nie Yama peni na ndadan kwakufu ado e de aproba hihye so na kopiemu okura friend Guyana na brama peni ekasa ewo nyina mahoden hu hyem kase bi ekoso wiasa mansa nyina de no ana mampeni na ndadan kwakufu ado e de tudu akirem se ebra so se nyakopon bode oboye no de betu atwa nyina mahoden afimu no ye de adwuma se na be betumi aboa ama nyina mahoden nsam no atumi agina o kyese Guyana fo eya ade betumi aboa mu ye papa ama mu nyina hoden nsam atumi agina breku na mu so no ne matwa mo ho ban no so no abo ho ban
We have a solemn duty to take immediate, bold, and concrete steps to protect global climate from warming beyond unbearable limits. We know it is in our own interest to act to salvage the economic fortunes of the continent, and more so, step our collective efforts to fight decisively climate change. We have till 2030 to stop climate change. And this requires us to deal with climate change more aggressively than we have in the past. However, we're faced with a conundrum. The African Development Bank has stated that Africa will need some $3 trillion United States dollars in mitigation and adaptation by 2030 to enable us implement our nationally determined contribution. The obvious question arises as to how do we finance these commitments, especially as our socioeconomic development continues, unfortunately, to be low. The great rivers of the world flow through our continent, and so are the lakes and the dramatic waterfalls. We have breathtaking deserts as well. We have minerals that the rest of the world would kill for. All the minerals that are needed to run modern economies are in our continent. Indeed, 30% of the Earth's remaining minerals are in Africa. We have fertile lands, we have picturesque and captivating landscapes, and useful and interesting plants. And we are still home to what is left of the big animals on our planet. The Almighty has blessed our lands with abundant natural resources. And we believe it would be wholly unfair for the world to demand that Africa abandons the exploitation of these same resources needed to finance her development and help us to cope better with the threat of climate change at a time when many countries on the continent have only just discovered them. The development and industrialization of the wealthy nations of today were also hinged on the exploitation of their natural resources. This development came at the expense of pollution and the emission of greenhouse gases. Even today, the Western world is responsible for 67% of carbon emissions compared to 4% by Africa. We acknowledge the importance and effects of climate change and the urgent need to combat it. And we acknowledge equally the importance of protecting our development. We, however, believe that a balance must be struck and maintained between our social, economic, and environmental imperatives.
Oswafo hwenkita udio nsem so honorable Esla Osu Ekufo na sem wode etu dwane say April bosume ewa afimu enkwa wie no na aban ennam emra kwan so ene enhihye nyina emu age etel tigu adwumeko no ewa abreko a obehwe se obedi emra so pepepe.
This article shall, with the necessary modification by Parliament, apply to an international business or economic transaction to which the government is a party as it applies to a loan. The Minister in her response says the Ministry will comply with the laws of the land by the end of this meeting of Parliament. However, the Daily Graphic of November 3rd, 2021 cites the Minister as announcing government complete takeover of the company. So I want to find out from the Minister, did the Daily Graphic quote her wrongly, or is she coming to Parliament to ratify the acquisition or sale of the company to government after she has completed the transaction? In line with 1815, it should have been before the transaction, not after the transaction. So I want clarity on that matter from the Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the acquisition of telecommunications companies follows a process, and that process is ongoing. There are phases in that process, from the contract signing, regulatory approvals, and closing obligations that parties have to undertake, and then the legal and regulatory processes that have to be gone through. Contract is signed at a particular period, and that's what was announced. The other closing obligations are ongoing. And when we conclude all of that, part of it being, if on the advice of the Attorney General, that we need to comply with any provision of the law regarding the acquisition, it will be done in due course. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
But 1815 says that the article, with the necessary modifications by Parliament, that modifications we have not yet done. Happily, we are all guided by decisions of the Supreme Court in this matter. We have also taken action, and we got consultants to submit to us a report with a draft bill on that issue. The bill is being worked on by our legislative drafting department and some members of Parliament who have to come by the rules as sponsors. We are likely to put that bill before the House this session for process and passage. And that is why we clarify at what time such international transactions or international business or economic transactions would get the approval of Parliament before they enter. But from the ministerial point of view, the processes involve some consensus at event with the parties before they come to Parliament for the approval. Whatever they do, without the final approval of Parliament, as you know, is of no essence. It's null and void. The Minister is a lawyer of great repute, and we are simply drawing attention to it. And so, once she's giving us a word, we would go by it. But this is not to stop you from asking further supplementary, just to clarify the situation. Yes, please.
Ebedweku a wombehwe aboa ama Ghana Civil Aviation Authority atuma adwuma yi ne dadai womada womadi a womde ahye omo so omonhwe mmoa se ne be ya Ghana Civil Aviation adwuma omo ye no ebekona nim ama Ghana ya fa ntoma pafura.
Onmonyafo Frederick Adom a wono ye osofo abedi akire ohwe akwantuo so ene ma bedwekuo no so afonamu hwaye wokyira no ose asoye no ani suadinu ene se kotoka wiemche gina bia bedamu befua ewa bibire atoye afamse ba ewiem akwantuo babi a ye kwakofa wiemhyenya eno nti abedwekuo no mra meye adwuma emmoa na sa ani suadinu no emrem.
Your appointment into office comes at a crucial time in the life of the aviation industry. As you may all be aware, the aviation sector is profoundly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, resulting in travel restrictions and job losses. The pandemic has left the sector to struggle in the last 2 years and still counting. Indeed, the aviation industry is one of the worst hit as a result of the pandemic. As a board, I charge you to be committed to promote to the greatest extent possible harmonized and inclusive approach to facilitate safe domestic and international air travels. This will enable us to work towards strengthening the confidence of the traveling public and safely rebuilding civil aviation. You will also agree with me that the envisaged economic benefits will elude us as a nation if we lose sight of reinforcing safety and security protocols as stipulated in ICAO Annex 1.7 and related standards and recommended practices SAPRs. You must also recognize that for Ghana to become the aviation hub, there must be conscious effort and some amount of investment to improve the safety and security of the sector.
Wato asubiem eno se emra ahodo omode abebeboa ma ewiem akwantu akoye no ekuo no mra meteye che no omonye na emra meye krabehwe.
The authority has been challenged in recent times with labor agitations from its union workers over the use of aviation lands and other matters. These are matters of concern to the ministry, and you are entreated to engage management and labor unions to forge a peaceful working relationship for the smooth running of the authority. Indeed, your commitment and dedication to duty is critical, and you must note that the very success of the sector rests on your shoulders.
Captain retired Spencer wono ena eyeba no deni edema abedwekuo no wada Ghana mampanyin na adodanko akufu ado ase ehye bose abedwekuo no beye adwumaden.
We would want to assure you that we will continue to maintain and strengthen those enviable records that have been achieved over the years. Our effort will solely be to strengthen the policy direction of the authority in ensuring that the government agenda of making Ghana an aviation hub is achieved.
Enyuma ne adansi so afọ Honorable Francis Asenso Boache wako apro e wotamale bia omobesi affordable housing project ahoro no e hwe se de enema city efa.
It's in the Baha no Mabehe Tamale affordable housing project site. Ahaye abrana mapanyina wetwamko owura Jekufo etiso no. We 5 affordable housing projects across the country. Tamale, Accra, Kofodua, Wa, and the Kumasi. Na bra ufris no, I'm say, but before buy no, and me on Twasso. Na number hey, baby, I be true. Number drew and Manyanti, I say, baby, me a boy, and my ministry no, it's me a pekwa before so. You beat me at 2 project no, so now we pay. I'm say, I bra land no, a da wa. Na project no en start here no and my phone so all no masase ho den my for encroach sisi down also bed den so bit make say budan no sisi no free no asa be sit down fofo enti no no de nya ho ne ehwe but de mesre aban panifo e wokromu ane ahemfofo wokromu so mo aban na kakra aka no ye mo ho ban ni aban ntimi entimi nyusu enye sa affordable housing program we say dey ma tamare for a so we almost yɛ adwuma must beat me at a dying so no matter no money or more business happening.
As part of that, we are doing that across the country. As I'm speaking to you now, we have some projects at Sefioso. Almost about 16 of them, over 16 of them have been purchased by Ghana Immigration Service because of the creation of the new region. So now Sefioso is a regional capital, and all institutions there are trying to upgrade their offices to regional status. So we have put up very beautiful houses there. And they also gave us another task of trying to solve the housing problems for their staff in Tamale. So State Housing acquired the land here to develop institutions, basically for institutions. So this is the first one you are seeing behind, which again Ghana Immigration Service is the one taking over. This unit have about 24 apartment units. So we started this project last year, and we've given ourselves 24 months.
Adeshimamba UTV enyumre kasebo ena yedifi ship house abeka junction ede esum madama moma yenkogin kratu edikan eba de aka no yede beto aso.
Yema arefo nyina akwaba yetoa ensem no eso.
Ye to so na ye National Petroleum Authority mpanyifo ahye amane ban saka che so mo che so mo Ghana police for be ka bom na nipa bonfo a wo mo tawiawia fa anwo fa me ahodo bi ene wo mo so etonton no gallon ene toa mu no wo mo to mo so sa
Ghana mra a efa fango ho no ekita NPA fo so mbehwe so bia enton fango ewo gallons anasa bottles ahodo ni mu eno entina kwanche for de ma NPA Dr. Mustafa Abdul Hamid edi atoposifo anim se yemwa won na won no moye saade no yenchi won wo kira no se NPA nkwa na kita tumi ombehwe se obi de fango ko baby papa akwakoto obebo ho ban a enkofa yenie biara emma ebra okọ buru mantem no ne ensentwofo edi nkombo na oto asobiom esre Ghana fo se yenhwe ena ya nto fango ewo kwanche sanse sa fango awodo na ya no mo afrafrem enye papa
se obi ebeton petrol anampo se diesel anase petroleum product biara ewo toamu anase ewo gallon eni kwansa wati na me kire na se nti se ebisa koso dia is against the law and no mema I mean of course all canon MPA officer wo sunyane officers a ewa ha o mate de wo kan nti se ne medi kan ye no so ye ba ye no enti na ye tu anamon kosra regional police commander se yesre no se nka oni ye officers a ye wo sunyan ha no omonfa omotoma emmo ano na nyoma ensem fata a ekokoso wo industry no mu omaboa yen amaye akon etia esan se yen nya police for ye need to me say ye betimi akire obi enti no se obi tia mra ye hia police moa say ye betimi menfa ne se se akoche no anampo se ye de no afa emra kwan so enti saade ne de ensem fata and me de akwanya yi ebo sunyanfo ene empotemu nyina akokọ se mayen enkoto sa type of fuel no mpo ena omanya se ebia emfaso bi wo ho enti omonkoso nye. First of all, product boycott nso eye another way a yetimi ekutia neoma ensem fata.
Enwumesia soafo onabo ya osei educhum na woni empanyifo omde schools ahoro ano ewo asante mantem adinkita ho ni nyina ene se wo hwe ehawa wo mu ehia ene ekwan obefa so obesi ohawa no edi ama wo.
Ministry of Education penyimfo abepiem okumase wa santimantem ha omune headmasters ahodo a omoda secondary schools ahodo na ehia a omo etoato adwene kwan ben so na Ministry of Education betima boa ama secondary schools eniema ese fata no omo ebetimi enya anase akande ne no na soafo a oda enwumasua aso ye mekire Minister for Education ononyamfo Dr. Yawo osei edutwum ene nsamtwefo ekasa mranhye ne eba wie ene wo kire se omo ede eniema pi eba sede ya womo ebetimi ayenhyehyɛ pa ebetima boa amampo headmasters etimi hu sɛ aduane sei ɛna ebia yɛde ama wo bi sɛ ɔmfamra school eniema bi sei ɛna ministry no ayenhyehyɛ sɛ yɛ Ghana Education Service anasa Ministry of Education so ɔmo ɛmfamra ɛno ebetimi aboa ama nhyehyɛ pa etimi akɔso ɛwɔ secondary schools ahodo.
A meeting with all headmasters across the country. We so far met with all headmasters from Ashanti and Ahafu. Today we've done about 3 other regions. And tomorrow we'll end it up with a meeting of with all technical and vocational education and training schools. 139 new schools are going to be part of the Free Senior High School. And these are all technical and vocational education and training schools. So the goal is to ensure that before we move more into the academic year, the minister will have interacted with all headmasters. We also have GS Deputy Director General here, who is part of this team. And we are speaking with all headmasters. We want to understand their issues and also want to let them know the new things that we're doing. We're all coming up with new ways of making sure that they get the resources that they need to run their schools well. Of course, like any human institution, some may talk about when is the food distribution, and we set up a system that will enable us to track the food distribution. One thing that is going to be done this year is that we are now going to give them the list of all the food items that they should be receiving. So if the items are not in, they will be able to know that we're supposed to get 1,000 bags of rice, we have this amount, and therefore the buffer stock should be giving us the remainder, and then we can all work together on it. So that's a new way of doing business in terms of food supply in our schools. So that is one area where we've come to a very good agreement as to how to move things in the coming year.
Yakwan Mashebedwemu a dwamtireni edema bedwaku ahwe yakwan ene akwantempon sam so no nyamfo Kennedy nyako sai one sancho fa hwehwe komo edato dwe ekiremu se womo ebeye kwan bi a emfa kuro no finfin bio ebefa kuro no achipe sede yehunu nsam mu sede nsam de eti na mia hodo a yebeyi kwan da free kuro no mafa kuro na chi eye aninam ingresi ani nyina wakue mantemu ena fei mia hodo bi eka wo mo hwe kwan so mo ye nse betumi aboye pa amakone abadie akwanim
in China President Akufo-Addo ede ne budget eba mrahye na oka wo mu say there are some 4 key major highways or person dualizing wo Ghana obo eye Kumasi Accra to Kumasi obo eye Aflawo to Tema roundabout to Aflawo obo eye Malam Johnson to Cape Coast and I san bo eye Tema roundabout to Akosombo me pesa me ka kire Ghana for say sisi e yaban awie nhihye bia o sha ase de afiri eye Accra to Kumasi na aban at the contract was signed contract with 8 different Ghanaian companies omoba be constructed 4 major bypasses you can say bypasses Samonam Kumasi na mo duru nkokwa a mo hu de president Akufo ye wachire no ka ne bi na ma na bi na anti traffic bi ani so yekoyo enu bi na Nado Danko Akufo-Addo enso eye A4 ye be ba ko osino a wo hwe akwantempon no ebeye akwantempon du ba ko echiripo nsia 11.6 kilometers obeye ba ko nso enyinam eno nso akwantempon nsia echiripo ba ko 6.1 kilometers obesa ye de toso miensa wo inresi akwantempon edu ni echiripo num 10.5 kilometers the twato no ye konongo obeye ba ko konongo bypass eno nso kwantempon du miensa ni echiripo enum 13.5 kilometers okeka ni nyina bomu aka aban ba bebo ho no de ayesa adwuma wei ebeko so ye 2 billion Ghana cedi nka antetesika no a ye ka about 2 trillion cedi o cedi so ye ka ye 2 trillion o Ghana cedi ade ba na sika mu dia me fan say 2 billion Ghana cedi esika esuye papa na ban trimupo na Nado Danko Akufo-Addo na ban pipi aban trimupo ne so mo yesa for bypasses you ya munim say ebeboa ma accident a AC okwan ne so because bebre pese ye overtaking kwan ni so na yenya head on collision ade nyina no eso ayeden abrase na face a traffic build up congestion na esi so a ye kwa nka country asese utumi ko bi about 2 hours and say 2.5 hours no you end up making it 5+ hours ni nyina so abrase na etumi aboa economic activity because the moment you be reduce traffic on the road no eboa ma economic activities so ekosoro nti we ni de President Akufo-Addo na ban eya esese me de beto Ghana fo anim na Ghana fo obi ehu de anamo a aban no etu ebeboa ye nyina hwie be ya hye ne nyina say by ending of March or first week in April sa companies ngotwe amabo mu di nyina no they will be in all the 4 sessions. The entire aban na adwen so the 2 companies per each session is say yep aban so opadwuma no ntem opese by 2024 no de na nka wa ye adwuma no nyina yeden awie.
University Teachers Association of Ghana a etwa ti afre ni UTAG no wo mo ye achechefo maka mwaboma wo mo kire ade e osuapon ahoro emom na bese enakakra eniomate etua amom ne National Labour Commission e etwa ni den enti asem ne kra eguso a e wo court na enne wo san kopiem e waseni bia ebio na enne na UTAG lawyer for emu ba ko a woni oru akekali de lata wode enchemu etu dwa ese UTAG de omai krado se ebrebia National Labour Commission for hebeto nsa from say ya no momre o na yede nhihye mapa egu akwan so no ombehwe so mbetumi edi so na opanyi de lata echem ene wo ka se bano apadie ene enwuma ho nsem a ehye National Labour Commission for ensem enti so me krado so omde nhihye mapa ebegu akwan so no matoto omni menyina yi kamade a ene UTAG no so begogo om ho akonhyemudie bi ombeto nsa from ase na de also mo kan o matena se aka na watumi edi yie atu yie na opanyi kali de lata oye UTAG lawyer HSA we no omakopiem e court esan say na National Labour Commission person che UTAG se etua na omate no enam mra kwan so na UTAG so pa akwanya e di achie Ghana for ene National Labour Commission say etua no omo namra kwan so eno na de twima mentwe a makroi aboe aba omakopiem e court no na ni nyina emo no educational think tank a wa ben ba ko a ene Africa Education Watch ekose aban kra echa na edwo UTAG fe omo nyoma dwi se etua omo begya ne anaso so ochina National Labour Commission so nye so mbe pass papa bia ka kire wo mo ama cheche fo ekuma atom yem no maba enti sesa na tie dia enu esuapo ahore wo memo ya aban de tutum na chese nkura no krampom ba bi entina esan sese wo hwemu kra na e kame say adesuafo afoforo wo makọ na aba fresh akoto foforo e no wo makọ matriculation dwumadie kra ye nye bi ma wo mo emfa ma wo makọ aba na kampeso mabo atenase ye kra enti se UTAG se chinchin achi na National Labour Commission so wo no ho masem no mo nka de a ono nko na dwumudi a Africa Education Watch mpanyifo se aban tutu suapo no mo se de be ya omo ka wie a obetumi aba na gire a ewese osi wasi e wonsem no ho
Another awia bremu ne saka nkrata fi police adwumako na so ye pani a wono na ekasama police adwumako oman yimu DSP kwasi fori na ne sahye ase ni nyina ne so mo kyerese bunu mantam MPP dwom tenani Kwame bafo abronye akoka nsem bi kyerese kan ne mampani His Excellency John Dramani Mahama ene akada fo aka bom pesom tu aban igu eyeku o magana mu na ne nsam no kan no na yasem a kame ese ana o shiti police for nso asoate ntomo to safra ne se ene awia no nan pepepe womna police asho no munini enkomo na manebo ensaka kyerese Kwame bafo nso edi asem no so ekoi na krata fofo ensaka anwumre ya Julie na oben ono na ekasa ema police adwumako nkramantam anso kyerese ene Kwame bafo abronye eba police adwumako no ahye ewo enkran na abrom toto na no bi se na nanu munsa ba kweme no miensa bi no wo mu hunu se ne nsam o kan ye no yensam ebetumi de ohawaba ebe yensam betumi de omanyi akọ oyene mu pa enu nti omo ye hwemu edi kan no wo se nsam no kan ne hye de ntwa yi sesi ekasa no ye de na atwere police for kukumu a wo chena ye de mbakọ court na o ma hye asenie no ase na no na police adwumako no de kokobo amagana fo nyina se wo bi anya hweye e wo nano mu nsam a wo ka ho esensensem no bi wo ho a ebetumi de oyene aba no bi biara oba bibia te sa no so de se police for so ni mu a anya de obejeja no omo de befa mara kwan so na emra na di sana be oman ya sumdwe a ye wo no ye betumi akoso atwukura mu da
yemfa kasie enko ahmeje a etoso mienu mu emra madaroma eba de akabia edebeba
ewi adehimama ya damo asibio se munya bretwa me yakoto nkrafe yakase ebo no yeto aso
dia mrase bedwani ema wa west emre bia etwem na oye police officer honorable Peter Lanshini Tobu han wode eto dwa se aprosifo ne bambofom wani nkukwan a obefa so aboban no de waso atoto fom na se neme bi nkoyi a omatumi etu ho na montem esense kakra we yakoka asema faku ho we so obetu aban yagu kwam yakoche no ose eno enya de a ebeboa
obetuma ka se me be yeku ono na kan yo so what the one be can there say there's no problem na ya tago wa ye the surveillance better so to say camera o kwajo nso kora na ye hwe because nipa no be ordinary no cars mo hwe na their capacity pa no we obetuma eku but ye nim nipa trimunti na ya place surveillance won so o place surveillance won so abebo so ba ko a ebia no ze we kora fa so bia ni so. You don't need to create sensationalism. Now what chino? No bia who say a papa no so be ku na china tum. We wait my ku. So wait my ku amman monitor na hwe ade. Okay, what china na me maame akotena village so say ile we dey buy be two aban we ago. Me maame a onim se be kuma se kurada. But ile bi na ye ne ya. Na kufu adaban ne ile buy be two na go. Na obi say abro wan pacho kon be na fa so two aban go. Na ya kwachi no. Wa police na ya chino. Na obi akoka obolga na ya chino. Obi aka makra na ya chi no ya chiche omu nyina tumu a o chi ne tuma na ne ba a wo akra na eye ne ya ne busu ani a water kura de na eye ne ya at the end of the no increase national temperature mom gradually it's like our security system must work, intelligence must work. Obi kasa yempa ni nhwe no
adeshimama yadamo ase se mo twen ye kwoto nkratia wa fe ye de kase ebo no eko community watch mu uko adantari ne potemu a shalobotwe ene eye ogbojo samso bi ho a mama fotumi di akone aba no ase ne no ena mam na hyebedwani ho no nyamfo Abu Ramadan akohwe se anyebia samso no wo mo ye ho adwuma na akwakusisen
Mrasha bedwam ni ema adentan abato mpesua so eyonmunyamfo Ramadan na wakonsrahwe akwakohwe nsamso no a wo mo eye ewo ashalebotwe ene obuju mpotem ho na wohwe we no asansamso we no wo mo eye wi a ebetumi aboa ma akobadi a wo mo efri ni ashale ene wo mo obuju no eye electoral area ho no bibia akoso tententempa ofa akwanya no so eda osoafo a ohwe ye kwan ne enkwantempon ho sem so oda wo mo ase se wo mo ede contract no ema ya sisi a one ekasai no womu egusua eye adwuma no dendenden ewo ho na saa bridge we no eyade a aha adwen ewo ho panti saa bre ya womu eya wi no na eye nanije sem kase pa ofa so eda B5+ construction for ase se womu enya pepa ya womu ekeka womu hu se de be ya womu bitimi awie saa samso we ententem na ogina so ede ensem sei etudwa.
Thankfully no yede aseda kase be ma Minister for Roads and Highways aya de within the bush so na ene yemu sa bridge kese ya Gakos for eye and Gakos so ye hwe omo capacity of worker Gakos is one of the companies that say e bomb abaso Ghana hanom. This project had actually been awarded in 2020 the company bi ye from B5+ in 2020 of November. Coastal Development Authority awarded this contract. And the duration for the contract was 6 months. A year after, in November, that was when I raised the issue in Parliament. Now contract an MIA anyway. Now so in less than 3 weeks, I got Koseba site or Motumiaye. So I dare may encourage authorities and they say going forward no. See the Juma contractors are contractors are or more capacity. So that you may Juma because you awarded contract in November of 2020 now. If the contract had capacity or beba site abe Jumanka yanshi 7-year-old ne akolano.
This work is not small work, but we are trying very hard to finish it as soon as possible.
Timamufu a womo ewo mpotamu ho so ede nsem sei etudwa.
Ya bre bebre wa hanom. Last year nche na akwara bi wu ogata imu. Nti waboa ye na obi an wu bioma de ebe ka ne se Nyankopon hyira no.
So waya de pa oya dwuma pa so Oye juma pa my pa said the enquala femu omo tete hwemu ne omo ho ye fi basa no awa ni se no ye ni so pa ye nde so wa ye ni sa.
Nsi to a hada ye bre. Hada hwe school na was esoro ha sei no. Enkoda be twom a enye easy. Enti ye bo na amede so wo hye ye bo so ogusu ye. Enti de nya so. Enti de yesra ni se omu ye bridge a na che omo nya start kwan no ye de a. Omo feel bridge do sada maye. Ah ye beti ba ye dan. Start with part 1 no. Ah ye beti ba twom ansa na omo ba ye kwan no. But omu ye bridge no omo ntwan se oh ya we bridge enti ye ba ye kwan se ya feel sada side. Enti yesra no se omu ye bridge no omu feel side down side. Ah ye beti ba ye dan ye beti ba nanta cross so. Ah school nkwara so be ye dan. Omo beto omo ah ye nyina ya ho beto ye anti that papa so aya de because e bo we share no we share say one oba sa bridge we de any sent a friend say peace be there e wo no a on be ye ampa say I had o ma start peace be so there on be start so ye that papa.
Awia de shimama aha na brema okwan ye de yakase bo no ABC answer ni bedi nkra no ye de aseda e ma specialize nsuo this way chocolate drink and then coffee drink afi this way 1 2 3 na fini me ba kwa ka ho ai friend yellow sisi ohima
So West Closet Madam Ase samo sheme atade omo number is 0243 508 635 and a cute cat beauty parlor mu ye miti e ma me omo number is 0246 897-589.
Midi ade Agya Kwabena mene
Obrahima Afia Asiedu.
Edamu nyina se ema mo nehwe.